The forms of the various forms of types of poems that were very common during the Romantic periods were odes, lyrics, and sonnets. And no wonder the greatest of Keats' poems are the great odes. Let's therefore look at the different types of or the different characteristics of the Romantic period. 1. The exploration of the self. Most of the information used by the poets in the poems is inspired by their personal experiences. The poems were emotional and importance was placed on human feelings and creativity which stemmed from the natural surrounding or backgrounds from which the poets came from. Keats' poems were influenced by his personal experience such as the great love that he had for his brothers, whom he had nursed and lost through tuberculosis. He also uses the experience of his love to Fanny Brown and his fear of life on the other side, that is death, as he battled himself with the tuberculosis that he had contracted when nursing his brother. Lastly, his poetry was influenced by his personal love for the beauty and creativity in literature, and his personal admiration for great writers like Shakespeare, Milton, Petrarch, and Homer. 2. The beauty and splendor and glorification of nature. Romantic poets saw splendor and beauty in every aspect of nature and believed that nature should be glorified. The magnificence of nature made it an integral part of the poetry of the Romantic period. Romantic poets gave vivid description of nature and projected all aspects of nature to capture its wide range and evoke personal emotions. Keats celebrated and glorified nature through its seasons, vegetation, weather, music, and the creatures that live in it. Through nature, the poets could communicate their personal feelings and state of mind. 3. Solitude as an instrument that inspires creativity. The Romantic poets celebrated loneliness, which they believe gave the poet creative inspiration to write poetry. They believed that creativity was provoked from the place of solitary confinement, be it by being in a lonely place or getting away from the presence of other human beings. The quiet space gave the poet time to think and create, using what they saw around them or felt from the innermost part of their hearts. These feelings, they believe, was to be spontaneous, and silence alone guarantees spontaneity. 4. The use of historic events or getting source of creativity from other cultures. The Romantic poets borrowed information from old stories, cultures, and exotic locations all over the world as a source to write or create poetry. They chose well-known locations from other parts of the globe as a setting for their poems. They borrowed from Greek and other cultures or civilization to bring out creativity and handle their intended subject matters. Next, the use of vivid description of events and objects or person. Romantic poets paid attention to minute details and vivid descriptions which appealed to the senses of sight, taste, smell, touch, and hearing. They also combined with the use of imagery, metaphor, and simile to embellish their creativity. The reader can clearly feel the atmosphere of the poem from its descriptive value. Next, the focus on imagination and creativity. Romantic poetry focused on the importance of the imaginative and creative force of the human being rather than his reasoning. They celebrated the different points of view from which individuals saw or appreciated the world, and they rejoiced in this divergence and diversity. They also explored these different visions in their poems to give it the artistic creativity that they cherished and craved for in their writing. We also had the influence of the supernatural and the spirits. The Romantic poets embraced the other side of emotional expression and mysticism. They used myths and legends concerning the supernatural as their subject matter. They wondered about the mysteries behind life and death. Through the involvement of the supernatural in their poems, Romantic poets could conveniently explore different human emotions such as depression, melancholy, guilt, or jealousy. Romantic poets were concerned about human feeling of melancholy and happiness or joy on earth. Next in line is the exploration of human emotions. Romantic poets or poetry explored human emotion in all its ramifications. The poets handled feelings of love, loneliness, fear, depression, melancholy, which could stem from natural occurrences. The fact that these poems handle aspects of human feelings made their poetry enjoyable and readable, and closer to those who read it. The reader could identify themselves with one or two or other feelings depending on the poem they were reading at the time. Keats' poetry was full of melancholy because of the loss of his brother. Then reciprocated an unconsummated love from Fanny Brown and the fear of death as he battled with tuberculosis in the later part of his life. The death of his brother, whom he loved so much, shocked him to the core and created a vacuum in his life. The loneliness of his life was intensified by the non-reciprocity or non-consummation of his feelings to Fanny because of his ailing health. Consequently, he knew that his time was up, as the tuberculosis terrorized him in the later part of his life. He became very preoccupied about what awaited him on the other side of life. Moreover, we have beauty in creativity and literature. Romantic poetry celebrated aesthetics, beauty, not just for nature, but for humans and objects as well. The poets glorified feminine beauty, which was natural rather than artificial. They also explored not just the physical beauty of women, but also the beauty of their souls or inner parts. Women were glorified, leading to romantic or courtly love. They saw beauty in everything, including objects, nature, or pieces of literary writing. And lastly, Romantic poet focused on man. It focuses on common man and his predicaments. It handles man's place in the universe and how man relates with other creatures and nature. They make the reader to understand that there was a kind of complicity or understanding between man and the natural features around them. It also shows the difference between the human world and the world of the supernatural. In the same light, it contrasts mortals and immortals. Once we have these characteristics, we can now start having an easier understanding of the various poems that we are going to read to find out which of the following characteristics fit in the poem that we are handling at the moment.